You are wearing your skin right now. You have worn it every second of your life. And you have probably never once questioned why it looks the way it does. But your skin color is not random. It is not decorative. It is the result of a survival war that played out across hundreds of thousands of years. A war fought silently, invisibly on the surface of your body. And the answer to why that war happened will change the way you look at yourself forever. Here is where it starts. Around 1.2 million years ago, your ancestors lost their body hair. Before that, early hominins were covered in thick dark fur, similar to other great apes. Underneath that fur, the skin was pale. When the hair went away, that pale skin was suddenly exposed to something brutal, the African equatorial sun. And ultraviolet radiation is not just light. It is a weapon. So what did your body do? It evolved. Melanin is the pigment responsible for dark skin. Your body produces it, and it acts as a biological sunscreen. The more melanin your skin contains, the more UV radiation it absorbs before that radiation can penetrate deeper layers and cause damage. This is not a cosmetic feature. It is armor. And in equatorial Africa, under some of the most intense UV radiation on the planet, dark skin was not optional. It was the difference between survival and death. But the threat was more specific than you might think. In 2000, researchers Nina Jablonski and George Chaplin published a landmark paper in the Journal of Human Evolution that reframed everything scientists thought they knew about skin color. They proposed that the critical factor was not just sunburn or skin cancer. It was folate. Folate is a B vitamin your body cannot make on its own. You have to get it from food, and you have to protect what you absorb. UV radiation, when it hits unprotected pale skin, destroys folate in your bloodstream within minutes. And folate is not a luxury nutrient. It is essential for fetal neural development, for DNA repair, for cell division. Without enough folate, pregnancies fail. Fetuses develop neural tube defects. Reproduction collapses. So in a high UV environment, any human with pale skin had a dramatically reduced chance of producing healthy offspring. Dark skin was not just useful. It was selected for with enormous force. So the ancestral human skin tone, the original baseline, was dark. This is not a hypothesis. It is confirmed by genetic diversity studies. John Rutherford, in research published in Human Biology, showed that the greatest diversity in pigmentation genetics exists among sub-Saharan African populations. Diversity in genetics means time. The more variation in a trait, the longer a population has been evolving it. Africans have been dark-skinned for a very long time. Long enough for evolution to produce an extraordinary range of deep shades, from the blue-black skin of some Nilotic peoples to the warmer tones of West Africans to the lighter brown of East Africans in higher altitude regions where UV is slightly lower. Now let's reconstruct a moment. Imagine one of your ancestors roughly 70,000 years ago, standing at the edge of the African continent. Behind them, the only world humans had ever known. Ahead, something no human had ever attempted, a crossing into new territory, north and east, into Asia and eventually into Europe. This was the out-of-Africa migration. Small groups walking slowly over thousands of years, following coastlines, following rivers, following food. And as they walked north, something changed. The sun got weaker. At higher latitudes, UV radiation drops significantly. The angle of the sun flattens. Cloud cover increases. Winters arrive. And suddenly the calculus that made dark skin so essential, that folate-protecting armor, became a liability. Because dark skin, while brilliant at blocking UV, also blocks the UV your body needs to synthesize vitamin D. Vitamin D is produced in your skin when UV radiation hits a molecule called 7-dehydrocholesterol. And vitamin D is not optional either. It regulates calcium absorption, immune function, bone density, and reproductive health. Without enough sunlight penetrating the skin to trigger that synthesis, vitamin D deficiency becomes chronic. Bones weaken. Immune systems fail. Fertility drops. In the low UV north, dark skin was now working against survival. So evolution, slowly over thousands of generations, began selecting for lighter skin. Individuals with slightly less melanin absorbed slightly more UV, synthesized slightly more vitamin D, had slightly healthier bones and slightly better pregnancy outcomes. Over generations, those individuals left more descendants. The genes for lighter skin spread. The specific genes responsible were identified in remarkable detail in the decades that followed. In 2005, Rebecca Lamason and her colleagues published a study in Science identifying a gene called SLC24A5. A single variant in this gene accounts for a significant portion of the skin tone difference between Europeans and Africans. It affects how melanin is packaged inside skin cells. Darker packaging produces darker skin. Lighter packaging produces lighter skin. This one gene variant in one population moving north changed the visible surface of an entire branch of humanity. But here is where it gets strange. Here is the counterintuitive twist. You might assume that the first modern humans to arrive in Europe, tens of thousands of years ago, were already light-skinned. They had left Africa. They were moving into a low UV environment. Surely the pressure to lighten had already begun? They were not light-skinned. Not yet. In 2015, Ian Matheson and a team of geneticists published a study in Nature analyzing ancient DNA from 230 ancient humans spanning thousands of years of European prehistory. What they found overturned the common assumption entirely. The genetic variants most strongly associated with light skin in modern Europeans were not widespread in Europe until roughly 8,000 to 6,000 years ago. The hunter-gatherers who lived in Europe during the Ice Age, people who had been living in low UV northern environments for tens of thousands of years, still carried a significant proportion of darker pigmentation variants. Light skin, as we see it in modern Europeans today, is astonishingly recent. It spread rapidly, likely boosted by the arrival of early farmers from Anatolia and later by steppe pastoralists migrating from the east, both of whom carried different combinations of light skin alleles. Those alleles then swept through the population under the continued pressure of low vitamin D synthesis in northern winters. And it did not happen only once. Heather Norton and colleagues published evidence in Molecular Biology and Evolution showing that light skin evolved independently in European and East Asian populations through entirely different genetic pathways. Europeans lightened primarily through SLC24A5 and SLC45A2. East Asians lightened through a different set of variants. The same outcome, reduced melanin, produced by completely different evolutionary routes. This is what biologists call convergent evolution. Two separate populations, facing the same environmental challenge, arriving at the same solution through different molecular roads. David Reich, the ancient DNA pioneer whose work is synthesized in Who We Are and How We Got Here, describes this process as one of the clearest examples of recent, rapid, strong natural selection in human history. The pressure was real. The response was fast. And the result is visible on every human face on the planet. There is one more layer to this story, and it is one that unsettles comfortable assumptions about race. The genetic research makes clear that skin color is not a marker of deep ancestral identity. It is a local adaptation to local UV levels. It evolved. Changed recently. The same genetic variants for light skin appeared independently in multiple unrelated populations. The same variants for dark skin are maintained wherever UV radiation is high, regardless of other ancestry. An East African population living near the equator and a South Asian population living near the equator may have similar dark pigmentation for identical environmental reasons, despite having been genetically separate for tens of thousands of years. Meanwhile, populations that migrated to similar latitudes independently converged on similar skin tones through completely different genes. Skin color tells you almost nothing about who a person is related to. It tells you almost everything about where their ancestors lived for the last several thousand years. And Jonathan Rees, in a comprehensive review in the Annual Review of Genetics, showed that even within the genes that control pigmentation, including the famous MC1, our gene responsible for red hair and the freckle-prone fair skin common in Northern Europeans, the variation is recent, local, and functionally driven. Every unusual pigmentation trait has a story. Every shade of skin has a reason rooted in latitude, in UV, in seasons, in the particular patch of Earth where a lineage happened to survive. So look at your skin right now. Whatever color it is a record. It is a map of a migration that took tens of thousands of years. It is the solution your ancestors' bodies found to a problem, too much sun or not enough. It is evolution made visible, worn on the surface of you, every single day. You have been wearing the answer to a 1.2-million-year-old question your whole life. You just never knew what question it was answering.